How can we forget the dreams, the hopes, the lives that our ancestors built and sacrificed for? How can we forget the more than 500,000 who perished at sea, escaping tyranny in search of freedom? How can we forget the suffering of those silenced behind bars of so-called re-education camps, who died nameless, voiceless, yet unbroken? No, sir, we will never forget. Their families remember, we remember, and we vow, as long as we draw a breath, that the flame of our republic, the ideals of freedom and democracy, shall never be extinguished. Our fight today is not one of arms, but remembrance, resistance, and resilience. Our voice, our truth, will be the light that guides those who still live under oppression, who still dream of liberty. And perhaps, most importantly, one day, perhaps not long from now, our children and their children will be called upon to help guide Vietnam back to the path of freedom, justice, and dignity. That moment is coming. It's inevitable. It is our solemn honor to invite Senator Richard H. Black, retired, to place a wreath in remembrance of the fallen on behalf of the 30th Commemoration Committee. Senator Black is a former U.S. Marine Corps officer and Army JAG colonel who flew 269 combat helicopter missions during the Vietnam War and was wounded in action. He later served in the Virginia State Senate and remained a steadfast advocate for honoring the sacrifice of the South Vietnamese and American Armed Forces. Please join us in welcoming Senator Black to this sacred act of remembrance.
Kính thưa quý vị, khi chúng ta cùng quy tụ trước bức tường tưởng niệm chiến tranh Việt Nam, chúng ta được nhắc nhở rằng tự do không phải là điều tự nhiên mà có, và rằng lòng biết ơn đối với những người đã phục vụ và hy sinh cho tự do ấy là điều vĩnh cửu. Trong giây phút trang nghiêm này, chúng tôi xin trân trọng kính mời Thượng nghị sĩ Richard Black tiến lên đặt vòng hoa tưởng niệm các chiến sĩ đã nằm xuống, thay mặt cho ban tổ chức đại lễ tưởng niệm 50 năm Quốc Hận 30 tháng 4. Ông Black từng là một sĩ quan trong Thủy quân lục chiến Hoa Kỳ và sau đó là đại tá quân Pháp trong lục quân Hoa Kỳ, đã thực hiện 269 phi vụ chiến đấu bằng trực thăng trong chiến tranh Việt Nam và từng bị thương khi thi hành nhiệm vụ. Sau chiến tranh, ông tiếp tục phục vụ quần chúng trong vai trò thượng nghị sĩ của tiểu bang Virginia và cho đến hôm nay vẫn là một tiếng nói kiên định trong việc tôn vinh sự hy sinh của các chiến sĩ Việt Nam Cộng Hòa và quân đội Hoa Kỳ. Xin quý vị cùng chúng tôi trân trọng chào đón Thượng Richard Black trong nghi lễ tưởng niệm đầy thiêng liêng này. Xin kính mời ông.
Thank you very much. It's good to see all of the Vietnam veterans coming through, the blue shirts. They have a great visit here. The wall is a special place. I want to start by giving a little shout out to my radio man, Corporal Henry Smith, and Lance Corporal Dennis Wargo. They're on panel number 19. They died right beside me. I was wounded along with about 8 others as we attacked to try to rescue an outpost across the Hoi An River. I flew 209 combat missions, and a lot of those missions were flying South Vietnamese soldiers into battle. And I watched as they would jump off the aircraft, and they would run into the enemy fire, and there would be streams of machine gun tracers flying by. There would be mortars exploding, and they were never shaken. They were fearless as they go into battle. And the South Vietnamese proved to be absolutely fearless fighters, not only while the Americans were there, but when the Americans began to withdraw, it was the South Vietnamese who fought in the Easter Offensive, which was a North Vietnamese with conventional arms, with tanks, and they had many arms that the South Vietnamese didn't. But the soldiers of the Republic of Vietnam fought them back, defeated the North Vietnamese, and drove them out and forced them to the peace table. So the Vietnamese were capable of fighting and defending the country on their own. They were prepared to do it. And it was not until Richard Nixon was thrown from the presidency and a new administration came in, and they cut off all of the fuel, the arms, the ammunition, the food, everything was cut off from the South Vietnamese. So even the most ardent and courageous soldiers could not fight. I spoke to an armor commander, and he said they would send our tanks out, and we would get one shell and 5 gallons of fuel to go out, which meant you could go one way, you could fire one shell, and it was over. But despite this, the South Vietnamese units fought, and when the peace was agreed, it was agreed in the palace in Saigon, but the army continued to fight, and it was not until they were ordered to surrender that they stopped. And so we saw tremendous heroism, and it continues. We have seen that the Vietnamese, they were promised that there would be a people's paradise when the communists came. But when the people's paradise arrived, it was just slaughter. One of the Vietnamese officials told me that in his village, which was a Catholic village, that they had a priest, and the North came in and they hunted down the priest. They captured him. They took him to the center of the village, and they ordered all of the villagers, the men, the women, the children, to line up and to watch. And they doused the priest with gasoline, and they lighted fire. They made little children, 5-year-old, 6-year-old children, watch this man burn to death. And the message was, this is what happens. We're in charge. We're the communists. If you defy us, this is what happens to you. So it was a terrible time. I watched through all these years as the Vietnamese, 2 million Vietnamese, boarded little sampans, unseaworthy craft, and they set out into the vastness of the South China Sea, fleeing the people's paradise. They didn't just stop. They went for an entire generation fleeing. And the North sent pirates. They encouraged the pirates to rob, to rape, to murder, and to drown the fleeing people. Hundreds of thousands were murdered in this way by the North. Yes, it was the pirates who did it, but the North could have told them, stop it, and they would have stopped. But the North encouraged them to go and brutalize innocent people, women, children. It was a horrible government, and it was one that it's important for us to remember when we look back and we think about why did the South Vietnamese fight. Now, I was there for 13 months. I was in almost constant battle, but I went home after that. The South Vietnamese, the war started in 1955 for them. So it went for 20 years. And they continued to fight, and they fought courageously. And then, when it was over, there were those great leaders who committed suicide, not because they feared what would happen to them, but because they did not want to be made examples so that they would increase the agony of the people who had supported them. They could not bear that. They wanted to take their own lives rather than have the people have to watch their trials before they were executed. So they were great heroes. We need to remember this. We need to remember why the war was fought. The war was fought for freedom. And even though in wartime nations don't have as much freedom as they would like, South Vietnam had a great deal of freedom, far more than they ever had after that. So I thank all of you for gathering together on this 50th anniversary. I think this is maybe the 22nd year I've been doing this. And I'm just proud to stand here with you and proud to have shed my blood along with yours in the defense of freedom. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Mr.